Right. So in the last session, we have discussed about the importance of Snowflake, uh, especially for integration purpose, which is a cloud thing. At the same time, being a business analyst, to what extent understanding functional as well as technical knowledge over Snowflake is important, that was already discussed. Wherein today I'm going to discuss about external functions, especially in Snowflake, being a business analyst team or people who are from the technical side, maybe irrespective of the kind of role it can be, majorly for BA, but even if not, even not only a business analyst, any technical people, they must be knowing about what are the external functions that we have in Snowflakes. Normally, these external functions, which is called as executable codes and all, which majorly useful for us to develop, maintain, and as well as store executions and all everything from the outside when we are going for any integration with some other external applications or any other domain, something like healthcare or something like. So, wherein we need to understand about the external functions at the same time, what is the best way for us to implement whatever the UDFs we have, like user defined functions. All these are essentially required. This is something which we need to know. Now, when it comes to the external functions are concerned, let us understand about external functions, which is called the kind of code that we try to execute outside the Snowflake, wherein remotely, wherein if you want to execute any kind of code or the kind of information that we are sending to a remote service, which normally replayed through a proxy services and all, so that whenever there is any kind of storage procedure of Snowflake we are following by implementing any security related or external informations for any APIs integration, everything will be performed in this regard. In this process, there are different key components which normally we need to know when it comes to the external functions are concerned. So these components majorly focuses on the type of UDF that we are using, something any external functions which does not contain its own code, or instead of external functions calls the code, whatever is the stored and as well as execution outside the Snowflake, or any kind of external functions which are stored in the database object, the kind of information that we are containing in this. At the same time, whatever the database objects which are representing by the external functions and all for any specific database schema, everything will be part of the external functions. Next one about the remote services, wherein remote services is also one of the area wherein you can see over here. Yeah, remote services. This is where generally the remote services are. Normally, this remote service must act as a function. For example, it must return to a value. Okay, for example, when we are supporting Snowflake supports any kind of scalar external functions and all, the remote services must return exactly one row for each and every row that is being received, so that whenever there is any kind of external function we are implementing on Snowflake, the remote services must accept different files we are using, right? So we use some JSON files and all of the things as an input, and as well as returns the JSON outputs by implementing compatible HTTP headers or any kind of JSON formatted data, or exposing any kind of HTTPS endpoints. For example, if there is any kind of AWS Lambda functions or any kind of Microsoft Azure functions, everything will be involved in it. So the next point, yeah, the next point about the proxy services, because this is also one of the HTTP proxy services, wherein you can see over here HTTP proxy services we have. So these proxy services majorly relies on the data that we are managing in the remote services, so that we can increase any kind of security by authenticating requests to the remote services. Everything will be involved in this. As an example, you see, because technically speaking. Like for example, any proxy service, something like Amazon API gateways or any kind of Microsoft Azure API service management. So everything will be involved in this. So this is also one of the key and important component that we are using. Next one about API integration, wherein you can see, right? So API integration is also one of the key and important, because when you want to integrate two different applications, Snowflakes, you are implementing with integrating with healthcare application to access the data, to have some standard decisions to be taken, to have some accuracy over the data that we have integrated. What are the objects that we are providing, or the kind of interfaces between any kind of Snowflake or third party services, or any kind of API integration that stores information such as any security information. Need to work with some proxy services or remote services. Everything will be part of API integration part. So these API integrations, external functions follow different rules, like external function rules, which returns the values. At the same time, external functions rule, which can accept some parameters. Everything will be used here. This is how generally external functions will be used when we are working on the snowflakes. Exclusively being a business analyst from the functional side, you need to have some knowledge, including functional and technical knowledge. Even for technical team also, knowing about this is always important. So how this external functions works, that we are going to discuss in the coming session.